TripAdvisor, we realized that, hey, they don't know if I'm supposed to go over here or over there, and so they got to thinking about it one day, and they said, hey, what if we just built a mobile-optimized booking engine, and we plugged that in as part of this booking process, and they went to their board, and they talked about it a little bit, and one day they said, yeah, we can do that, and then we ended up with something like this, where you could very quickly and easily go in there and book that reservation. And it worked. And so then we see these examples now with TripAdvisor and Google both that use that format so that they can optimize bookings. It worked so well on mobile that they moved into desktop. All because the bookings weren't converting as well on the hotelier's link, their original booking engine. Now, originally, again, that was because they were not mobile optimized. But it still carried over because a lot of booking engines, even on desktop, are not mobile optimized for the meta search experience, where somebody just wanted to get in there and book very quickly. And it has been successful for them. It has worked very well for them. That's why they keep on doing it. That's why it's such a hot topic, and we hear about it almost every day. You'll see another article, somebody talking about Instant Book or Book on Google, or if you go into Trivago, they have Trivago Express. There's a site called Tunar in Asia that has what they call Tunar TTS, and the list goes on and on and on. They keep on doing this because it keeps on working. And it keeps on working more effectively than what a lot of the hotel's own booking engines do. Now, me personally, I'm a believer in getting that traffic back to the hotel's booking engine. It's really where I want to get it. Not to misunderstand, though, you do get all of the guest information. So that is the one advantage that it still has versus an OTA. Whereas if it books through an OTA, you don't know the guest email address and that type of details. Coming from an assisted booking model, you get to capture all of that. So it does have that advantage versus an OTA. So, assisted booking model, Instant Book, and the BOG. When we talk about Google, and this question actually came up a little bit earlier about what was the cost associated with Google and using Book on Google. And as Michael said, using Book on Google in and of itself does not have a fee. You can do it either with a cost per click that goes directly to the brand, or a cost per click that goes to Book on Google. Likewise, you can do it with a commission that goes to the brand, or a commission that goes to Book on Google. Book on Google is a tool. It facilitates the booking process. Okay? So, when we think about the pros and cons of assisted booking, some of the advantages include the fact that it's got the higher conversion rate, that it is mobile optimized. In some cases, you can do the commission versus CPC. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit here when we talk about CPA models. And for the most part, it's plug and play. Now, I hesitate to say that just a little bit, because my engineers would probably come and beat me over the head with a baseball bat if they heard me say that. It's not quite that easy. There's a lot of technology that goes into it. As Michael was talking about earlier, there is content, data, secure data, such as credit card information, that has to be passed through. So, from a technological standpoint, there's a lot that goes into the back end of that. From the hotelier's operations standpoint, I can plug that thing in and let it go do its thing, for the most part. Okay? So when to use that? Well, we talked about the booking engine. We talked about how it's not always optimized for mobile and this stuff and all this stuff. But even as I sit here and talk about that, we have to face the fact that changing your booking engine isn't easy. You're not going to go home tonight and say, hey, let's change the booking engine. Not as simple as that. So sometimes this can be a quick fix. My site is not optimized for mobile. I cringe a little bit saying that still, because we've been talking about mobile in the digital marketing world for so long now. And yet, in spite of that, we see that there are so many cases where these sites are still not optimized for the mobile booking experience. Their channels have told us that. We've heard it from Google, from TripAdvisor, from Kayak, that a lot of times the hoteliers don't have their site optimized for mobile bookings. It's still a thing. I don't have a budget. So we'll talk about budgets here in just a moment, but I don't have a budget. It's 2017 and I didn't budget anything for MetaSearch this year. It's really hard to put that line item into your marketing spend. All of a sudden we're just going to slide that in. But if I'm doing this on a commission basis or a CPA model, guess what? Now it's just a commission on the reservation as opposed to a line item that I have to put into my marketing spend. So many times that can be a benefit to me. And it needs to be easy with qualifications. But I need it to be fairly easy to manage. Now, easy means that I also give up some control, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But I want to be able to have it set up as that plug and play that I described earlier, where I can say, hey, at least I've got my foot in the door, I put my toe in the water, and we're in. We're doing something with it. And that's a good way to get started. Disadvantages. You do give up some of that control. So if your goal is that you want to be in that number one position each time, every time, that may not be the way to do it. So if we're talking about Google, for example, Google will take the commission that they're getting off of your bookings and reverse engineer that into what we refer to as an effective CPC. So how does that CPC then measure up with other people who are bidding for that? If you're working on TripAdvisor Instant Book, you're going to sign an agreement with TripAdvisor that says you're going to pay them, whether it be 12%, 15% commission, some amount of commission. And for that, you're going to get a certain rotation. Maybe that's 50% of the time that you have rotation, maybe more, maybe less. Even at 50%, that means that 50% of the time you're not featured in the rotation. And by the way, that percentage of the time is also going to vary based on that rate parity thing that we talked about earlier, because there's a big clause in there that says that if you don't have the lowest rate, that kind of nixes that whole percentage of your rotation on it. So keeping that in mind. So it will have less visibility in many cases. We generally say that managed CPC wins if you want to have that visibility, if you want to have book to only, those types of settings. Not just owning, but truly embracing the guests. You know, we talk about that a lot. But what does that really mean? So we talk about how we want to get the guest information and guest data. We want to have that for our use. How many people actually have a plan to do something with it? We're here at a digital marketing conference. There are some companies here, actually I'll throw one out there, no association with it whatsoever, but Digital Alchemy is a good one, for example, that does a fantastic job of putting together a strategy for pre- and post-stay communication with the guest. So are you working with somebody, and that's just one example, there's many others too, I encourage you to look up those vendors and talk with them. Are you working with somebody that can help you do something with that data? That's very important. And of course, this whole thing about outsourcing your bookings. I've been in hospitality longer than I care to admit sometimes. And I can remember back to right after 9/11, everybody remembers that terrible day. And the immediate thing that happened, of course, it had a devastating effect on the travel industry. And so what happened immediately following that was we all sold our souls to the OTAs as hoteliers. We went to them and said, put heads in beds for me, book my rooms for me, because I didn't have anybody coming in. And then we spent about the next 10 years trying to get that traffic back. We're doing the same thing now, right? We're saying, hey, my booking engine isn't up to snuff. OTA or metasearch site, book that room for me because you've got a better booking engine than I do. What happens when that day comes when we say, I want to get that traffic back again? So I'm not a fan of outsourcing bookings, but there are definitely legitimate reasons for doing so. And so keeping those in mind. All right, so when not to use, I'm getting double-digit plus meta conversion rates on my own booking engine. If you are getting 10% or higher conversion rates on your booking engine, keep it. All right, now, one thing I would qualify is that on TripAdvisor, you can occupy 2 points of sale. You can still have your own direct and the instant book, and anytime you have an opportunity to occupy 2 points of sale, why wouldn't you? Absolutely. I want to own my branded search terms. We talked about the control factor that we mentioned earlier. So somebody searches for my hotel by name. I do not want that going onto an OTA because I'm a digital marketer and I want to own that. I want more volume and visibility. I want to increase the traffic that I'm getting off of these channels. I not only want to own the guest, but I have a marketing plan to optimize it, and overall, I just want to have control. All right, so we've gone through the list of these different things here. The final one on this list is setting and understanding the goals. And this is such an important part. I almost put it first, actually, but we had to kind of understand some of these other aspects to understand how this part came together. So, what is your motivation? A lot of times the first answer we get is, I want to get bookings. Well, of course we want to get bookings. But what else is important? Let's think for a moment like an OTA. If we can, put ourselves into an OTA mindset. If I am the Marriott Marquis, and I'm on metasearch, I am working on metasearch for the Marriott Marquis Times Square. If I am Booking.com, Expedia, or an OTA of any sort that's involved in metasearch, I am doing metasearch for New York City. Yes, of course, I want to get bookings, but that is not my only motivation. If I'm an OTA, I want to get that exposure. I want to have eyeballs. I want people clicking on me and coming to my site. Well, those are viable goals and objectives for the hotel as well. So branding, volume, owning the guest, understanding the cost of sale and the return on ad spend, and having that diversified portfolio. All of these are important factors when we consider what sort of goals are you setting for your meta search campaign and meta search strategy. So when we talk about the planning, think about a couple of things. First of all, how does this compare with other campaigns that I'm running? Most everybody's probably doing something with a digital agency. Perhaps you are a digital agency and you've run your SEO campaigns. Now, not saying that meta search should be at the same level as SEO necessarily, but you should see similar trends. If one of them goes up, so should the other. Likewise, if it goes down, and so on. So they should parallel each other to some degree. What is my cost of sale? What am I seeing as a cost of sale on meta search? My cost of sale is 10%, and I'm paying an OTA 15%. Why wouldn't I do this? In fact, why would I even put a cap on the budget for it? We'll talk about budgets here in just a moment. What is my rate parity? How does that look? If I've got my rate parity in check, or for that matter, if I'm even willing to give that lowest rate on my own website, I know that meta search can rock for me. I know that I can accomplish very good things with it. What is my conversion rate? So as we talked about earlier, if you're getting those double-digit conversions, really even if you're getting 5% or better conversions, absolutely you can have an effective campaign. Now, if your conversion rate is 1%, does that mean you don't do meta search? No. But it does mean that you need to understand that you've got a lower click-through or you've got a lower booking volume that's coming from that. You've got a different type of consumer behavior that is happening with that. And so you need to make sure that you've got the right objectives that are going to surround that. It doesn't mean you don't want exposure. Of course you want exposure. You want to still have that volume, still have that branding. But you need to make sure that you understand how that works in as part of the overall campaign. And what are my costs per click? Am I seeing a cost per click of $15 per click and higher? That's a real thing. That happens. And is that okay? Maybe I'm okay with that price point. But how can I look at options or look at the ability to have sources that have lower cost per click? What can we do with that? And how can we diversify that portfolio, as we talked about earlier? Okay, but what if I don't have any of this data? That's all fine and good as long as I've got some history behind it, but what happens if I have none of that information? Well, that goes back to those CPA models that we talked about earlier. CPA models are really a great way to dip your toe in the water, get some basic information, some understanding about what those metrics look like, see how it performs, and minimize the risk in doing so. So seek out comparisons to similar hotels and markets. The Grand Hyatt New York should have similar metrics and comparisons to the Grand Hyatt San Francisco. Case in point. Now, by that same example, the Blue Ridge Motel in Boise, Idaho should not have the same statistics as the Wailea Grand Resort in Hawaii. Right? So you don't want to compare those two to each other. So find somebody that's in your same type of market set and look for similar hotels and see what kind of statistics that they have. Question?
Yeah. So I was just thinking in my mind about that when your slide came up.
Yeah.
Is there a tool? One of the things that we run into a lot is exactly that challenge right here. So agencies want to give us like all of it, right? They want to give us here's what the average for the U.S. is for XYZ.
Right.
They don't want to dial down and give us market data, market comparisons, market stuff.
Yeah.
We don't have time to go hunt down the Grand Hyatt in another location to compare to us. So when we're working with the agent, is there a tool or something that would allow us to get that ourselves?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. We have,
Derbysoft.
yeah, exactly. We have a database. Thank you, great segue. Yeah. No, seriously, we have a database of about 20,000 hotels that we do meta search campaigns for. In one way or another, would that be just connectivity or managing campaigns and so on? And while I can't give away anybody's proprietary data, I can certainly look at a full-service hotel in New York City and say, hey, how does that look? And how does that compare maybe with somebody in a San Francisco? And what should we expect from that type of hotel? I can take a sampling of hotels, maybe 5, 10 hotels, whatever, that fit that type of model, that type of category, and see what their performance looks like.
So the reality is that when you think about what your cost per click is, you may think it's really low, but in fact it might be exactly where it is.
That's exactly right.
I think that's just something that I don't think we get enough data on that. That's really trying to be.
You're absolutely right. And that's very hard to come into a campaign with no historical data whatsoever and be able to predict, hey, this is what we should expect for it in 2017. If you have no historical data, you're shooting darts at a wall in the dark. It's really hard to come up with those numbers. Great question. Okay, testing the waters, getting some of that data. If you don't have data, get data. Do it with a manner that's going to be as little risk as possible. So let's go back to these goals. Let's go through a couple of different scenarios. So scenario number one, this is what we wish everybody would be, right? This is what we call the perfect story. I want top placement on all of my major channels. I have excellent rate parity. Conversion rates are around 7.5%. CPCs are low. My cost of sales is about 9%, and this performs better than my paid search ads. Solution, bigger is better, right? You want to go all out. You need to cover as many channels as possible to generate volume. More clicks, of course, meaning more budget that's going to be required. And in some cases, and by the way, this is a real example. We do have scenarios where this has happened, where we actually had a major brand that took funding away from their SEO campaigns and moved it to metasearch because of these exact reasons. Okay? Now let's do the reality show. This is a little bit more true to what most people see. So I want as much exposure as I can get, but I have to keep within a monthly budget regardless of the performance. I don't have a lot of historical data, but I need my cost of sale to be under 12%. So in this case, control is the key. You can't just turn it loose and let it run. We need to start generating that traffic to look at the history, keeping that diversified portfolio such an important part of that, and making adjustments between those channels so you can have cross-channel optimization, and seeing where you're getting those results. Once you have those results, take those and use them, and adjust your campaigns accordingly. We do recommend consulting with an agency, perhaps one that's handling your paid search campaigns, to get some of their expertise in these areas as well. If they're not experts on it, tell them to come talk to us and we'll help them be experts on it. And then finally, the safety dance. I want to play, but I can't fit this into my budget this year, and honestly, I have no idea what to expect in terms of performance. Okay? Solution, seek out commission models. Google and TripAdvisor are great examples of those. They can help you dip your toe in the water. Use that data then to help guide your future plans. Seem overwhelming? Absolutely. And as a little bit of a plug for us, since we haven't been here today, we can help. And having the proper tools in place is an important part of this. Being able to analyze, optimize, adapt, and change to these market trends is a critical component to your campaign management. And having somebody that understands what is going on with all these channels, because today's Tuesday, right? If you came to ask me what's going on with these channels, that's almost the first question I have to ask is, what day is it? Because it does change frequently. Case in point with Google, they just added on tablets. That's one of their big multipliers. Okay? Things that are constantly changing on that. And you need somebody that you can work with to help optimize those and understand what's going on with it. Being able to manage the channels, apply budget controls,